My name is Ketan Joshi, and I'm a biker, backpacker, and a travel writer. I'm the author of Three Men on Motorcycles, The Amigos Ride to Ladakh, and I'm doing a video book narration of my second book, which is Three Men Ride Again, The Amigos Ride to Spiti. Till now, we have covered quite a lot of ground. We have been from Bombay to Chandigarh, Chandigarh to Spiti. We have explored Spiti, and now we have come to the village on the edge of Spiti, which is Losar. If you haven't seen all the episodes before now, do take a look. It will give you a handle on what's happening right now. And without any further ado, let's jump straight into it. Three men, ride again. Three men, ride again. The Amigos ride to Spiti, Losar to Manali. Caw! 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 I woke up to see a worn out crow cawing feebly on my windowsill. It cawed wheezily. Hey, what happened? Are you okay? Where the fuck have you been? I flew to mud, then to Key, then to Kipper, the Kada. Finally, I came here. Ka. What are you doing in Losar already? Ka. Well, you see, just then Delzad came over, and when he saw the bird, his eyes glazed over, his tongue lolled out, and drool sprayed everywhere. Tanduri! 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 He screamed and lunged for the bird. And the terrified bird let out a terrified squawk and flew off in a cloud of feathers, screaming caw 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 caw, leaving a disappointed Bawa behind. Today we will be tackling the pass connecting Spiti Valley and Lahul region, the Kunzumla. This pass would be the toughest part of the ride because the Kunzum Pass is the worst and most fucked up road in this stretch. First of all, we finally bade farewell to the Spiti River, which we had been following for so long. It was an emotional moment for me to be leaving this beautiful river behind. What a presence it is. I hope they never build dams and desecrate this place. Kinnaur is fucked up enough. About 18 kilometers from Losar, we came to Kunzum Top, which is a pretty high pass at about 4,500 meters and is the point at which we leave the Spiti Plateau and start following the Chenab or the Chandra River, as it is called here, on its journey down to the valley of Keylong. It had magnificent views of the Chandrabhaga ranges. There is a group of chortens on the top, and the tradition is to circle the chorten in the clockwise manner before setting out on that dangerous descent. The last time we were here, I was here, Bharti had negotiated with a taxi guy to drop us at Kunzum Tops, and we had trekked 9 kilometers to Chandratal Lake, the source of the Chandra River. That was an amazing trek. We were completely alone on the track all through and enjoyed the Himalayan countryside. And imagine my surprise when we reached the lake and there was a guy in a tent there selling chai and Maggie. Like a jinn who had just materialized out of nowhere so that my wish for a hot cup of tea could be fulfilled. I took off my shoes and dipped my feet in the cold water of the stream and drank hot chai. We had carried a tent and sleeping bags and were planning to spend a beautiful quiet night on the banks of the Lake of the Moon. There were a few tents set up already and we had to walk a bit to find a quiet and unoccupied spot. Unfortunately, after we set up the tent, a bunch of noisy North Indians came and camped near us and made noise and played music in the night and ruined the spirit of the night. Yeah, idiots. We trekked down to Batal the next day, and this patch was a much more unpleasant walk because they're converting the walking path into a jeep track by dumping a lot of stones and crap on the path, and this had made it a very uncomfortable walk. It was a real relief to complete the walk and end up at Batal Tower. Now, we are not trekking. We were riding, and that's a different challenge altogether. That road was fucked. That path is so steep, it's snow covered for 9 months of the year. And so when they do clear it, They seem to be scraping off all the tar along with the snow, and you're left only with the bones of the road to ride on, the stones and the gravel. Baba was overjoyed when he saw that road. His face lit up with delight on seeing a dirt road, and he even forgot about his tandoori. A greater lust had taken him. He went rattling and shaking down that road with the lowest gear and one very foot on the brake. One wrong move or one slip, and he could end up taking the short way down. And a direct ticket up. But it's beautiful. The route follows the river Chandra, and you can actually see it swell. It starts as a small and modest stream emanating from the Chandratal lake, and as it goes down, it grows in size and power as it collects water from its many tributaries. You are surrounded by giant snow-clad mountains, all bare and treeless, and the roads are extremely challenging, with water and loose stones all over them, and with a mountain on one side and a steep drop into the drink on the other. So you're constantly on your toes. Not only are you on your toes, but your heart and your balls are fighting for place in your mouth. The road ranges between merely bad to outright terrible. To are you fucking kidding me? To God, service. We crossed the other entry point to Chandratal Lake. We had exited from here when we were coming down from our trek. I pointed to the sign saying, way to Chandratal Lake, and asked if they would like to check out that jeep path. Both of them chickened out. It was 14 kilometers away. Wimps. The dhaba at Batal was very close at this point. Most trekking groups from Manali get dropped at the dhaba and walked from there, and were collected from there on the way back. We stopped there for a break and went inside for some tea and snacks. The couple running the dhaba are great characters and have been operating there since years and years and years. I remembered them from my last visit so many years back. That old guy was very cool. I remembered the last time I was here, a Firang was asking, what was there to eat? This guy shows him a pot of rice and says, risotto. We promptly ordered some parathas and some tea, and our man Deldar promptly pulled his buff over his face and goes to sleep. Power nap, he explained later. I was looking over the various photos and paper clippings pasted on the walls and see that they have been awarded a special bravery award. Yeah, there had been a terrible snowfall and landslide out here, and that shown amazing bravery in going out into the snow and saving a lot of people. Various papers have written articles about them, and there are photos of both of them dressed in their best clothes receiving awards at a special function. I was very impressed. That's so cool. I congratulated our host with his award, and he modestly waved it away. It's nothing. We always help people. People are always idiots, always getting stuck in here, and we have to pull them out. Adi also came and gave his regards. The old man smiled mischievously and said, "Arey, this is what they know about. Sometimes I cut people's throats also, that they don't know." The parathas are piping hot and delicious, and Bhava wanted to eat and eat. But it reminded him that there's a long and tough journey ahead. Arey, I thought we finished the tough part and it's smooth rolling from here, he said. No, no. It gets much worse from here, and after that we still have to cover Rohtang Pass. His eyes lit up and he danced a jig. Yay! Startling the other customers intensely. Yahoo! More bad roads! More off-roading! Yippee! And as promised, the road became even worse as we went on. There were no roads at all in most places, just rocks and mud. Giant waterfalls flowed over the roads, creating giant water crossings. The sight of the water thundering down the mountain, crossing that narrow road and thundering down the steep precipice at the end of the road was enough to unnerve even the experienced shield drivers. Of course, they are driving heavily filled trucks and buses, which are much more difficult to maneuver than our bikes. We had to stop at a couple of places because the vehicle got stuck in the water. The passengers seemed to be quite used to this. They calmly got down, and the men folk pushed the vehicles while the women stood at the side and laughed at them. Push, you weaklings! Push harder! Are you men or mice? Ha 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 ha! One bus was tilting alarmingly to the side and looked like it would go over the side and into the waterfall. But they seemed to be used to this as well. A bunch of guys clambered on the other side to counterbalance the bus and stop it tilting. And the others pushed at it until it managed to get a grip on the submerged rocks and just roar to the other side of the waters. Yeah, all in a day's work, they seem to say. Piece of cake. Happily, we did not get stuck anywhere and managed to cross all the obstacles without breaking down or getting stuck or going over the side. The road seemed to get better after some time, and the mountains began to look green and less menacing as we lost altitude. And soon we were off the pass and into level ground. Woohoo! We stopped at a roadside stall and had some strong tea and Maggie to celebrate. We met the Manali Leh road at Gramfu, and we had come on the road just last year when we did the Leh ride, and we were coming back from Leh to Manali. But we are not heading towards Leh this time. We are heading in the opposite direction, towards Manali. And at the end of the ride, I towards that tandoori chicken. But before that, we had a formidable obstacle to cross, the Rohtang Pass. The Rohtang Pass connects the green and fertile Kullu Bias Valley with the brown and bare Laol and Spiti regions. It is about 4,000 feet high and is a pretty tough pass to cross. We normally do not associate Rohtang with death and destruction. So our default associations are going there as a small day outing to play in the snow, as a pleasant trip for kids and honeymooners. But at one time, this pass was so dangerous that the very meaning of the word Rohtang in the both language is pile of dead bodies for the large amount of people who cop it while crossing it or trying to make a path here. That's because the Pir and Panjal range acts as a barrier to the rain-bearing clouds which come from the mainland. This is what creates the rain shadow and the cold desert region of the in Spiti and Ladakh and further on in Leh. Uh, and at an awful lot of fog and cloud as well. So what happens when rain meets a mountain? It increases the risk of landslides and giant rocks falling on your head. Not to mention creating muddy and mucky roads which can cause you to slip and slide or get badly stuck. But that is the appeal of the pass as far as we are concerned. The sheer difficulty of the pass, the fucked up roads, the off-roading in mud, in stones and water, all this is what makes the trip so much fun. The path from Gramfu to Rohtang Top is almost in much worse condition than the path from Manali to Rohtang Top. That is because the government dignitaries do the day trip from Manali and do not carry on to the other side. They go out, they come back. So the PWD creates a little Potemkin village out there. All is well, sir. See, what a beautiful road. Chaka chak. Baba got a hard on when he saw that road. Let him go and orgastic scream and attacked it. And we followed suit. There is no way you can climb this kind of road in a serene and lawful manner. You have to attack it, and the momentum will carry you through. You will definitely get stuck. Go for the bam bam, thank you ma'am, rather than the slow seduction. Candy is dandy, said Ogden Nash in his guide to seduction. But liquor is quicker. We charged our way up that slushy road as far as we could, as fast as we could manage it, and the momentum kept us going through. Other bikers who were intimidated by the incline in the road kept getting stuck while we slammed our way through. We got wet and mud splattered and had a ball of a time. I always find it easier going up a slippery slope rather than down because you're controlling your speed by the accelerator rather than by the brake. You can slow down just by lowering your throttle. Of course, it helps to have a powerful bike and good tires. Now they're planning to build a tunnel under this pass. And so that the road will be safe and easy and you will be able to access the Laval and Spiti region all through the year. I shudder at the thought. It's a terrible idea. It will completely destroy the beauty of the region and it will become a disgusting hellhole like Manali and Shimla. This area is still nice because it is difficult to reach. You can see the degeneration of Leh already. It has become easy to reach by air. And a tunnel will screw up the place completely. Yeah. They're planning to take the railway to Leh from Jammu and build tunnels under all the major passes on the Manali Leh road. Good grief. Go and spend as much time as possible out there before that this happens because it's then sayonara to the Ladakh region. But there was no tunnel as yet and we thoroughly enjoyed our mud splattered journey to Rohtang Top. The second successive year here and we felt quite at home. We stopped to bump fish and embrace and take photos. We are happy, quite sad as well. The solitary mountain ride was over, and now we are entering civilization and crowded roads. What a pity. A part of me wanted to turn around and descend back to Gramfu and keep going in the other direction. The road down from Rohtang Top was crowded and jammed and screwed up as usual. But I didn't get tired and mostly intact. After the kind of road we had been on for so long, it was a pleasant change. Once we cleared the traffic jams near the Rohtang Top, the traffic thinned out and the ride became very beautiful and enjoyable. The change in scenery was dramatic. Gone were the brown Himalayan deserts. Now we are surrounded by green snow-topped mountains and the insanely beautiful Bias Valley below. It was like a picture postcard. Me and Adi were riding along, staring at the scenery and giving each other thumbs up. But suddenly we realized Delta was missing. Where had that bugger gone? We parked our guide's bikes at the side of the road and waited for him. Several minutes passed, and we were beginning to wonder. When one biker stopped and asked, "Were we Delza's friends?" And on learning that we were, he told us that Delza had a puncture. A puncture! We had rode to the worst of the roads and no roads, and there's no problem. And when he got onto a nice tar road, he gets a puncture. That boy is so weird. That tire must have had an identity crisis. Or maybe it was so relieved at having reached a good road that let out a whew, sigh of relief and all the air escaped. As we were suiting up to go and get him, we saw him riding slowly and carefully down the road. Who tells her driving slowly and carefully? He also saw us and motioned for us to wait. And he came down to us. For any normal person, a punctured tire would be a bad thing. We greeted with curses and oaths and wailing, but bad luck. But for these two amigos, it was a time of celebration. Yay! A puncture! How wonderful! Delta and Adi and Delta linked arms and danced jig on the road, much to the surprise of passing motorists. A puncture! Yay! Finally, a chance to use all the tools and implements we've been carrying around. We'll remove the tire and the tube and change the tube because we'll be carrying around a spare tube. Yay! Adi became so excited. He went red and started hyperventilating. Since we're anyway removing the tire, let us change the brake pads too. And the wheel bearings. And the shock absorbers. And the forks. And the oil. And the ouch! Tire! He stopped babbling and I whacked him on the head. What was that for? Ow! Baba whacked him as well. Focus, bugger, focus. We are only changing the tube and nothing else. Adi sulked and he removed the tools on the side. I was a complete ignorance at all this stuff, so I just sat around and watched. Baba was on his element. We quickly removed a tire from the bike. I can't even button my pants without missing a button and cursing and redoing and missing another button. And he laid out on the road, not my pants, the tire. And removed the valves to release the remaining air from the tube. Then he removed two lethal looking screwdrivers and brandished them around. A couple of passers-by thought that he was some kind of crazed killer and they were so frightened that they ran away screaming, "Ah!" Then he and Adi attacked that tire tube and poked and pulled at it viciously until it was freed from the wheel frame. And Adi managed to mangle the thumb and scream, "Ow, ow, 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 ow." And the passers even more convinced that a mass murder was happening. Then they yanked out that perfidious inner tube and shoved in the new tube and poked his valve out of the appropriate hole in the wheel and shoved the rest of the tube in place. Then came the labor of pushing the tire back into the wheel frame. They stood on the tires and grunted and pushed and pulled and they popped the tire back into the wheel. They were messing around with those two long screwdrivers so violently that I was sure they were going to put somebody's eye out. They promptly moved further away and watched. Finally, it was all done. And Baba grunted in satisfaction and gestured royally to Adi. "Arey, give me the pump." "What pump?" Taylor was sweaty and irritated. "What do you mean, what pump?" "The air pump. The pump to fill air into the tube, obviously." I don't have the pump. You have the pump. No, you have the pump. No, you have the pump. They both looked at each other. The terrible truth dawning on them. Bugger! I said that since you have the automatic air pump, I will not carry my foot pump. Adi said. No, no. I said that since you are carrying a dependable foot pump, there is no need to carry my electronic pump which might fail. Ooh, bloody hell. What to do now? Yeah, nice new tube, but it is no use without air in it. Try blowing it like a balloon with your mouth. I said, and both of them looked at me savagely and brandished tire iron. So I ran away and hit behind a road sign. No help for it. We had to flag down passing motorists to borrow pump. They shouted and waved, "Hey, stop, hey!" But the sight of these two giant, sweaty, and in Adi's case, bleeding gorillas so scared everyone that no one dared to stop, but stomped on the accelerator and zoomed off. Even grizzled truck drivers in giant trucks turned pale and ran off. Finally, I stepped into the road, and my calm and dignified and patrician presence reassured people. And finally, a group of Firang bikers stopped to help. Those Firangs are amazing. Here we are all covered up in riding gear and armor and whatnot, and these guys do the Ladakh ride in shorts and t-shirts. What's the trouble, mate? He asked. Do you have pump? Dindar asked. They repeat puncture, but we don't have pump. Yeah, sure, mate. No worries. He reached behind him and handed over a bicycle pump. You know, bicycle. That little thing you use at home, you hold it between your legs and push down the handle. I looked at it doubtfully. Can this thing fill up a motorcycle tire, really? But that was the only thing available, so we took it gratefully. Keep it, mate, he said. We're through with the ride. But the pillion rider made of sterner stuff. He looked like Kanju's type. He wanted a pump back. If possible, please return it. We are at Manali, yes, please. The rider waved it off. Nah, man, no problem. And rode off. But the pillion rider kept shouting, yes, please, Manali, yes, please. He shrugged and Baba connected the pump and started pumping. I thought it would take hours and all three had to chip in. But to my surprise, that little pump filled up the tire in seconds. I was very impressed. When I thought about it later, it wasn't that surprising. The PSI required in motorcycle tubes is much lesser than in bikes, in bicycles. My Thunderbird 500 required just 20 psi in the front tire, while a cycle requires 65 psi. So of course, the motorcycle tire is much fatter. Anyway, that Firang rider had really saved our bacon. What goes around comes around. We had filled air in a biker's tire on the Ladakh road last year, so God sent us this guy in return. All was good now, and we enjoyed a relaxed ride down the mountain in the outskirts of Manali. Just as we were crossing the bridge over the Bias, we were flagged down by a skinny guy with a beard and ponytail. He came up to me and held out his hand and I'd asked, got wind? Yes, sorry, I replied. But I thought the sound of the engine had drowned it out. He looked confused and replied, no, no, it's my name. I'm Godwin. Oh, Dick Loose. Really? How loose? You're more confused. No, it's my name, Dick Cruz. I'm Godwin Dick Cruz. I'm also a rider from Mumbai. Oh, oh, really? That's great. We shook hands. Godwin Dick Cruz. Oh, not. Hmm. Where are you guys staying in Manali? He asked. We have just entered Manali and not yet booked any hotel. We'll look around and find some place, I suppose. Um, Rider Sin replied gravely, like some priest from a pulpit. Do they? Really? We are quite nice people, really. Again he was confused, but he carried on bravely. Ride in, he replied. I myself an Enfielder and I started a hotel specifically for riders. It's called Ride In. Oh, Riders In. Oh, acha, okay. Would you like to see it? Yeah, sure, dude. Lead on. Got to support your gang. It was a short ride away and was tucked away in a nice quiet village in the middle of an apple orchard. It looked quite nice. So we decided to stay the night. Gordon was himself a rider and he and his wife had taken the brave step of leaving Mumbai because they are sick of the traffic and pollution and bad life out there and decided to settle in Manali. They first supported themselves as hair grooming professionals, going from hotel to hotel and offering their services. Then they thought of opening a hair grooming studio. But Gordon was a keen rider and all of that ambition to open up a hotel, especially for riders. So they saved up money and got some partners and took the plunge and started riding. He had decorated the place with stuff made out of bike parts. Tables made of gear wheels and chairs made of tanks and seats and lamps made of exhaust pipes, etc. etc. It was a real labor of love. In the old time hunting lodges, the walls used to be decorated with parts of animals, heads of tigers and rear ends of rhinos and stuff like that. So I suppose it was very suitable that in a new age riding lodge, the wall would be decorated with parts of bikes, handlebars and battery boxes and gears. You can imagine some old time shikari having a drink and talking about how he had backed that tiger in this jungle and killed that sambar in that jungle. Similarly, an Enfield rider would decorate this place with the bike part which broke down. This exhaust, it fell off while I was riding a Spiti, he might say. This gear, it got burned while coming down Rohtang. And this chassis, it broke while going over that lump in Ladakh. Adi would be having enough broken parts to decorate a whole chain of hotels just by himself. So, Baba, I said after we removed our gear and relaxed a bit, what shall we do now? Tandoori! He shouted, Tandoori, Tandoori, Tandoori. But the nearest tandoori joint is a market area, several kilometers away. I said, I don't care. I will ride to the ends of the earth if I have to. I want tandoori! So we left the place and we had selected because it was nice and quiet and secluded. And rode all the way to the market area, which was chock-a-block with tourists and traffic. And found a restaurant which was selling tandoori chicken. Baba scarfed on half a dozen chickens and then sat back and burped happily. For him, at that moment, life had nothing more to offer. That was it for this chapter. Thanks for listening. As always, if you have not done so already, please subscribe to the channel. And if you would like to read this book, read the story in its whole, this is the book, Three Men Ride Again. This is part of the Three Men franchise series of 5 books. And obviously I written a lot of other books. You can check them out in my website, ketanjoshi.net. Thanks a lot. Keep listening.